Hi, and welcome to Modding Mental Health.
A podcast about video games and, well, mental health.
In this episode, we discuss Fran Bow. Our conversation includes talks of abuse, dissociation, gore, and trauma. Thank you for your time and discretion.
Now that you know what is coming your way, relax, grab a cup of coffee, and take your red pills.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Modding Mental Health. Wow. Don't look at me like that.
I'm sorry. We're so rusty at this. Hello, everyone. I'm not laughing. I promise.
After this suggestion of a game that you made me play, I would say I'm traumatized. So me being a little lost for words, I'm blaming you.
You know what? That is very fair. Do you have like any life update for us? And before we jump into the game,
God, do I?
It's been a bit. It's been a minute.
God, where do I even start?
In a minute, I think it's been 3 months.
Yeah, it's been a hot second.
That's all right.
I met up with some Twitch friends in Illinois.
Ooh.
That was fun. We visited some like Abraham Lincoln museums. Played a lot of Mario Kart.
Ooh.
So what about you? How have you been?
You know, she's stable for now. It's okay. I'm taking my sweet time recovering, and I'm actually doing okay right now.
That's good.
I'm starting trauma therapy next week, so that's gonna be something, which I need to be stable for that. So
been there, done that.
We had to wait until I got a bit better. In the meantime, I've been going to the gym. I'm fucking jacked.
Hell yeah.
Do you want to see?
Can I?
Yeah.
Ooh, mommy got
Can
muscle.
You see that?
Yeah.
Like.
Oh my god.
Yeah, my arms.
Why are you so sexy?
Ugh, I need to shower.
Oh, girl, that was me this morning. You have no idea.
Oh, I'm blonde now. That's another life update. But
the blonde looks. I love it.
Thank
I need
you.
to get my hair done. I wanted to get some like rose gold highlights, but it's so expensive. Doing hair.
It is
so expensive.
I paid so much for this.
Yeah, and then you have to go back too, don't you?
Yeah. To be fair, I still had so my mom, bless her, love you, mom. She paid for my wedding dress, and then there was still some money. She thought it would cost more.
Mm-hmm.
So she had put more money aside, and then she just gave me the rest and was like, I'm sure there's going to be expenses that you still have to cover, like shoes and jewelry and hair and everything. So I'm using that money right now, but I think it's also kind of like running out. But it's fine.
Hey, it's something.
So I'm just, this is one of the first times I'm going to the salon to get it done. And I'm saying, I want this, so I'm gonna do it, and I think it looks pretty cool, so.
Treat yourself. You deserve it.
Yeah. Exactly. Treat yourself to some little red pills. I sadly, for some reason, my soundboard doesn't work right now, so imagine I do the soundboard like do. Anyways, yeah, Fran Bow, little girl. Fran Bow Dagenhart.
I knew a Dagenhart at my high school. Fun fact.
What?
Yeah. They're not related. I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
Do you want to go give a little bit of a synopsis for anyone at home who has no idea about the game and who wants to know what's gonna happening? Spoilers ahead, obviously.
Gosh. How do I even... I'm still flabbergasted by this game. It is a complete mind fuck. But essentially, you play this girl, Fran. You have a cat, Mr. Midnight, and your Aunt Grace, and your mom and dad. And I want to say in the middle of the night, your parents get murdered.
Mm-hmm.
The mom's decapitated. Very gruesome. And you and Mr. Midnight, your cat, decide to escape the house and run into the woods. And through all of that transaction, I think... From what I remember, Fran ends up unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
And people take her. So they didn't take the cat, so Mr. Midnight's now missing. and Fran gets taken to an asylum, or she wakes up in an asylum
Mm-hmm.
called Oswald Asylum. And that's essentially where the story picks. That's where you start. You're in this mental institute with what looks like a bunch of other children, and you are given these pills. What are they called? Duotane.
Yeah, duotine, I think.
It's a made up medication in the world, and it essentially allows Fran to shift between realities. So the whole part of the first few chapters is trying to find Mr. Midnight and figuring out who caused the death of your parents. Because Fran knows she shouldn't be in this asylum where she is currently.
Yes. I think, but it also makes sense. Like, Fran suffers from trauma-induced memory loss.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some chunks in her memory missing for whatever reason. Like, she doesn't remember everything that happened, and she kind of pierces it together. First, like going through the different rooms in the asylum, and then later together with Mr. Midnight, going through all these different chapters, basically. It's a point and click game, so you solve riddles, right, as you go through it.
Very simple, yeah.
And I think I kind of want to mention real quick. So the chapters are called, chapter 1 is called My Sober Day. Chapter 2 has 2 parts. The first part is curiosity symptoms, and the second part is double personality. The third chapter is called vegetative state. Chapter 4 again has 2 parts, part 1 being called My Imaginary Friend, and part 2 Doctor's Prescription. And chapter 5 is called The House of Madness. And I think kind of already these chapters give something away that's gonna happen. And I feel like, especially between the shifting between the 2 realities, I think she calls the other one the unreality, something like that, if I remember correctly, makes it very interesting.
Do you want to take it by chapter?
I think that would be a pretty good idea to go through them. Yeah.
So when you're inside this asylum on the first chapter, you also meet a bunch of other children who are a part of this mental institution.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the game, like you said, it's a point and click. So a lot of the puzzles you need to figure out are through conversation or through interacting with other people. And when you're in this asylum and you take a pill, the children all of a sudden are dead, and
Mm-hmm.
there's like a creature above them, which I interpreted to be their trauma, whatever trauma that they're in for. I believe there's a girl you need to get a green crayon from, and her name's Adelaide, I want to say. When you are in like the real reality, whatever you want to call it, she just seems perfectly fine. So I think she's scribbling on the ground, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you take a pill and you enter the unreal reality, there are bloody handprints around her, like in different, like kind of sexual places on her. And if you interact with her demon, I think he says something along the lines of, like, it's your fault that this happened. Like, they're blaming themselves.
Yeah, I think I remember that.
And I just thought, like, I was so taken aback that it was like that was what the game was, because that's like one of your first
Mm-hmm.
like looks of kind of the setting. I drew one of my own demons because I thought that was so cool that everyone
Yeah.
had. I think I showed you that.
It looks really, really cool.
Did I show you Fred's?
No, you did not. I would like to see if you want to show
So
me.
Fred made his own. I'll send you both.
We'll put them on the Twitter, by the way.
This is Fred and I's. And even from just those 2 pictures, I think it's so interesting how people see themselves differently. Like you're
Yeah.
So anyways, I just thought that was very cool.
That is really. I also interpreted thank you, it as your demon is the thing that basically feeds from the worst thing that you think about yourself, or like the worst, maybe not even think that you want to keep hidden about yourself.
Like your darkest thoughts, your
Yeah.
trauma. Yeah.
Something, but it seems as if it's like literally feeding from that, because there's this little line always going, like as if it's sort of messed up umbilical cord.
Yeah.
Even that's what I saw. That was very interesting.
Because even Fran has her own. I know if there's a room you walk into, there's one of those the therapist benches, remember?
Yes,
That like your typical something you would lay on to talk to
you're
somebody.
right.
And Fran's not there, but when you take a pill, you see Fran's skeletal body, and
Yes.
it's almost like her intestines are pouring out of her, and it's going into like her demon thing that's just kind of like staring over her completely.
I think I know this comes in later in the game, but I think this might be very interesting to talk about from the get go because of Fran. At one of the very last chapters of the game, you interact with Fran's childhood bedroom, and you see the wardrobe. And I don't know if you clicked on the picture, but if you click on a picture, there is like picture of Fran and a different girl. They're both holding cats, I think.
I think I know what you're talking about.
I think they're both holding cats, and it says when she interacts with it, Fran says, "This is my friend Alice. She tells me all wonderful stories about rabbits and cats and magical world." And so this is, I think, what this game is also modeled after. Fran Bow is basically a very, very twisted Alice in Wonderland, because she kind of falls into her own rabbit hole. And apparently, Alice in Wonderland is a real person in this game, because I mean it's referenced, and apparently it's also referenced that, I mean, there's been so many adaptations of Alice in Wonderland where Alice is older and she's also either in a hospital or an asylum, and it's about how she has psychosis and so on and so forth. And I think that game kind of takes the same approach, even though like Alice in this instance is also still this young girl, and they kind of bond. Apparently, they bonded over the shared dreams or something like that, shared imagination in a way. But yeah, so I thought this was really interesting and very important, I guess, to share from the get go, so that to kind of understand also what this game is going into. Basically, a very dark and twisted Wonderland and Ella's story.
Also, I just want to say,
yes,
Fran can see all of this, and she's completely unfazed. She is.
Oh yeah.
She's not a care in the world. She's not scared, which I appreciated, because I didn't make me scared. You know, it was just kind of like, oh, okay. I'm just trying to find Mr. Midnight. Do you know where he is? Like, she's so completely desensitized and dissociated from everything that's happening around her. There's no reaction.
Yes.
And it's almost more creepy that she doesn't have a reaction.
Yeah. She reacts to some things. Like when there's a scary clown, she's like, "Oh, I don't want to go there. There's a scary clown. I don't really like that."
Yeah.
Like she does say that, but mostly she's pretty okay with things. And even later on, like she does question something. She's like, "This is not how this is in my world, and I don't know. This is not how I know. This is not common sense or whatever." But then when people basically tell her like, "Oh yeah, no, that works this way," she's like, "Oh, okay, I guess that's how this works here. I guess I just have to, I don't know, accept it in a way."
The whole entire time I'm questioning myself of what's really real and what's not, because there's so many times where you think, okay, this is the real world, but then they cross over somehow, and it's very confusing. I want to say it's within the first part. Aunt Grace makes a comment that Fran just has a very imaginative imagination.
Yes, she does.
Children who have been abused, the only way they can process what has happened to them is through their imagination.
Yes.
Because that's what makes sense to them. So they're processing it in a way that makes sense. So I think, going on a stretch, I want to say this is just an interpretation of Fran's mental state. But then I also don't know because then that's why I can't because you don't know because then it's also happening.
Yeah.
I can't actually tell.
Yes, the game just beautifully leaves that open, actually. And I think that's great. You literally just said something about making sense of childhood trauma. And I read an article by the lovely Rachel Presser. She wrote an article in 2018 called Fran Bow and Making Sense of Childhood Trauma.
Oh, hey.
And in the article, she discusses her own experience with childhood abuse coming from her mom. Apparently, a mom like verbally abused her as a child. And she also played Fran Bow, and she talks about the overlaps that she found and how this game actually helped her work through her childhood trauma, and how this made lots of sense to her, and how she found some meaning in this.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was it's a really lovely piece. I'm definitely going to link it into all the descriptions that we have. It is beautifully written. I've been meaning to show it to you, but also I was like, no, I don't want to spoil you with the things that I found. But it's really, really cool. It talks about how, literally what you just said, how you make your own like fantasy world to escape from the things that happen, and how you, for instance, wish to be saved,
Mm-hmm.
and how that wish to be saved then later maybe clashes with the burning desire for autonomy in adulthood, she says. So like how you want to flee and you want to be helped, but then also you become an adult and it's like you have to help yourself. And that's why there's like usually there's often a cycle of abuse and so on and so forth. And I found,
say 2021, that sounds a lot like what I was going through.
so this is extremely well, this is, I think, extremely well written, and especially it talks about how the magical safe havens and the fantasy of your abuser being taken out. And I don't want to, I think we're going to come back to this later, because there is a safe haven in the game, and then there is a way how the abuser is taken out. And I think that is, however you may interpret that, because there's different ways, I think, to interpret this. And Kill Monday Games, the studio of this game, leaves it open intentionally. So we're not gonna get like closure necessarily. Well, however, we're gonna get the closure that we want to get, I think, from this game. But I don't want to take too much yet. We're still in chapter 1, basically.
Right.
And I still want to discuss some things in chapter 1. Namely, the setting of the asylum.
Right.
Because we talked about this before in Never Ending Nightmares. And I remember us being very critical of that. So I would like you to know, like, I would like to know some thoughts of you of this game, or horror game, essentially choosing this setting intentionally again.
I don't know, because it just goes with the theme of it. I feel like last time in Never Ending Nightmares, it was almost just like a plot to make you feel more scared. Like it wasn't necessarily a established location. Well, I feel like this one, even when you leave the asylum, even when you escape, it's still attached to the story.
I think there's a big difference in that too. And I think there's another like very, very big difference actually. And I didn't pick that up. I read it in a different article. I read so many articles. Man. Look at me. Hey.
I'm so proud of you.
It's called Madness as True Sight in the Cat Lady and Fran Bow, also from 2018, written by Sarah Stang. And she points out how, of course, like putting things into like, or putting a horror game in an asylum setting, usually, on the one hand, it definitely does reinstate this false narrative that we still have in our society about medical asylums, or just, it's not asylum anymore. It's medical institutions, medical clinics, and people like, because I've been pretty open with this. I went to a clinic last September for 10 weeks, but I was at like a day clinic, so I only went there during the day. I have someone very close to me staying at a clinic right now full time. And it's still like when I think when either they or I are confronted about this, people are always like, ooh, is it like, do they like tie you down, or like, do you give you jackets? Like, what is it? And it's actually it's very, very
Yeah, they
nice.
think of like the straight
Yeah,
jacket.
but like that's also a thing how like horror games or horror movies that kind of perpetuate that
Sure.
pretty harmful stereotype. And I will criticize Fran Bow for that still. However, I think there's a very big difference here, and that is also pointed out by Sarah in her article, is how the patients in the asylum are not the evil ones. And that's also a big difference to Never Ending Nightmares, because you had the monsters running around. And they're also, that's a thing in, what's that one movie, the one game called where you're having the camera?
Outlast. Okay.
That's a
Yeah.
that's Outlast is, I think I would say, the asylum game. And that is just perpetuating horrible stereotypes. I think that's very different in Fran Bow, because the patients are all wonderful.
The asylum feels lived in, but not in a bad way. It feels just like occupied. Because when you go into a different room, like I said, you see different kids, but it only isn't until you take the pill that you see like the disturbing stuff. And if anything, it's like you walk around, you see, I think there's a janitor. Maybe it's a janitor or it's a nurse. There's like just workers walking around, while in Never Ending Nightmares, it was terrifying. Like everyone was.
Yeah, it was all dark and terrifying and broken stuff. And
this one isn't.
Yeah, that's true. There's still some things there for sure, because it. So that I think in this one it's more like the doctors are scary. So the nurse is very scary. She has a gun, I think, even. But like, yeah, she has a gun. And then we also
see, that's very normal in America. Not fazed by that. Medical person has a gun. Oh, okay, makes sense.
I am. Anyways, you also really learn later that the nurse is one of the evil people, because I think we learned that the medication that Fran is on is actually experimental, and it's not literally duotine, but there's something else in it as well. I think there's something she finds out, but she doesn't. She sees and the player makes the connection, but Fran doesn't. It's one of those things that I find quite interesting. And we learn later that Dr. Oswald, the person that the asylum is named after, is a very evil person who does experimentation on children, especially twins. He has an obsession with twins. And that made me think of something that's also very, very dark. I think there was I should have researched this bit more, but I think there was a Nazi scientist who was obsessed with twins.
I think I know what you're talking about, actually.
Yes. No, it's actually and that is literally the case that they're talking about also in Fran Bow, because Mengele sewed two Romani twins together to create conjoined twins. And that's literally what happens with Dr. Oswald too, which we find out later in one of the later chapters with, what are the twins' names again?
Clara and Mia.
So Clara and Mira are the twins that are sewn together by Dr. Oswald. So that's like, I guess that this is definitely a direct link that the game put in purposefully to link back to Mengele, the Nazi. We definitely in that case, so that how do we get here? Oh yeah, the nurse is evil in a sense, and so is the Dr. Oswald that is in there. However, I think that the other doctor is a nice person. So it's not all medical staff at this facility is evil. It's just that there are some very evil people there. Chapter 2, I mostly remember the twin storyline from that one, to be honest, because I took my time in that house. So basically, right, you escape the asylum, right? You're still trying to fight Mr. Midnight, and you learn that Mr. Midnight was stolen, apparently, and brought down a well, and then in that well, when you're in the other world, you're actually in a house.
Mm-hmm.
And that house belongs to twins that were sewn together later on in life. And I think in the other world, it has something to do with this character called Itward, or at least they blame him for it.
I was about to say, this is when we meet Itward.
Yes, which is a very interesting character. It's a bit like a death sort of character. He's a skeleton with a top hat. It reminded me of that one villain in Princess and the Frog.
Oh, yeah. The magician guy.
You know? Yeah. I got Friends from the Other Side. That's the name. That's a song. I don't know what his name is. I'm sorry. Please.
The Shadow
Oh,
Man.
yeah. Dr. Facilier, maybe? Facilier? The Shadow Man.
You're totally right. That is the top hat and everything.
Yeah. Pretty freaking cool.
I saw Itward more as he's not a bad person, but he's not a good person either. I kind of just saw him as a Grim Reaper type character.
Yeah, me too.
Like he's there to guide you. He has no bias.
Yeah.
He's just kind of there for himself.
He has his own rules that he lives by.
Yeah.
Like he has his own. I think he said that he would save the twins would have been saved in a way if they had to make up basically because I think they hated each other, so they had to basically become friends. I think that was his logic to release their spirits, but they didn't become friends necessarily. And so he didn't want to release their souls, so he lives by his own kind of code, kind of rules. But we don't really see him much. We just see him when he comes. He looks through the window, and I think he gives us something, and then he leaves again to figure out the puzzle.
One of the plots is that you're helping the twins get unstuck, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you use these twins, and you essentially sacrifice them on this pentagram, and they die very violently in front of you.
Mm-hmm. I think it was either them or you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, that gives you the key to unlock the cage that held your cat, Mr. Midnight.
Mr. Midnight is free.
You reunite with your cat very early on, which I was surprised playing it. I didn't think you were gonna find the cat that fast, which I'm glad you did, because Mr. Midnight resembles a lot of Burrow, so I kind of got a little emotional with my little kitty cat.
Mr. Midnight is a great cat, and he talks. He can talk in human.
He talks in human, yes.
And he's basically a bit of your sidekick from then on. Sometimes a little bit the voice of reason for some things, I feel. He in some ways seems a bit older than Fran. In a way. I don't know. I can't really explain it. But yeah, it's really interesting to have him there. I will also say while we're on this topic real quick, a lot of the riddles you have to solve, you have to really think like a child. So I'm just gonna pick this because literally this is what I was just thinking of. There's a toad, and you have to make the toad bigger so that you and Mr. Midnight can sit on the toad to cross the river. And to do that, you have to put, what was it? Like baking soda?
Think so.
Baking powder onto the toad. Because it's like dough. So the toad feels like dough, and so it rises.
I had a lot of help with some of these riddles.
They are not easy riddles.
They're not.
No.
They make sense, though, if you really think about it, but sometimes I was thinking too hard about it.
Yes. Sometimes you have to think, like, very, very, you have to make it very easy for yourself. I will say, I think at my first playthrough, I got stuck at some points and just have to Google because I was just like, no, I'm not going to figure it out. I need to know right now. But yeah, so like, that's just something that I was also struck by because you really almost fall back into this childlike wonder stage, seeing everything through the eyes of Fran Bow, and I thought that was also very powerful in a sense. Basically, I don't know, it made me think about my inner child a lot and what that inner child has seen and so on and so forth. I thought that was very interesting.
Definitely. I sometimes, even now, like, think back to when I was little and just think to myself, like, that was not right. Like, I am well, I don't even know how to describe that because I know now what I was witnessing when I was younger, but being at that age and being so oblivious to it, but then being mad that it was happening around me, but then also being sad that I experienced it at such a young age. It's a very complicated feeling to have, and to not be mad at people or upset with yourself. So
yeah. Do you have anything more to say about the twins storyline, or do you think we've touched upon the most important things here?
That's pretty much it.
What did you think about the next chapter? that's what I'm very curious about, because the next chapter is called Vegetative State, and it's a funny, good wordplay because they're vegetables running around, but then also you're in this world that I first jumped in. I was like, how does this fit in with the rest of the game right now? Hold up.
Hysteria.
Oh, I always called it Itherista, but it's
I
not.
think it's hysteria.
Yeah, you're right. Or is it Ithirsta? Ithirsta.
Thirsta.
Ithirsta. Ithirsta. I don't know. See, my brain always went Itherista. That makes
We
sense.
make up our own
I don't
words.
know. Doesn't matter. But yeah, what did you make of that chapter?
Okay, so my immediate thought was Fran's dead. I thought that was some type of heaven or an interpretation of heaven. I didn't know what to think of it. I was so confused throughout the whole entire thing. I didn't know what to think. Honestly, I kind of just wish Fran would stay there forever.
Yes. I had the same feeling, for sure. I was very much confused because I thought I was playing a horror game, and now I'm in this is, okay, just to sum it up, it's a beautiful fairy tale world. Basically, you have a magical doctor flying dragon, which, if you've ever watched Never Ending Story, I think it's somewhat in the realm of that. Yeah, or like an axol. Is it an axolotl? A fluffy axolotl?
It looks like an axolotl, but think of Appa
yeah.
from Last Airbender, but as an axolotl. It is so
It's so cute.
fucking cute, dude.
Yeah, so everything is pretty and beautiful, and you're in this world where there's lots of vegetables
You're
running
in the
around.
clouds.
Yeah, you're in the clouds. The boats can fly. There's festivals.
Yeah, it's so pretty.
You can change the seasons with a clock. It's super magical. There's a wizard there. There's a library. There's like happy kids reading in the library. There's a very nice and benevolent king that rules this kingdom, and it's so cute and so beautiful. And like you just said, I want to stay there forever. And you want to know something really interesting? When I recommended this game to you, that chapter was the one that was stuck mostly in my brain. So I had already forgotten most of the horrible stuff that had happened before then, and I kind of already forgot whatever happened after that. I was so focused on that chapter. I was like, yeah, I mean, that was beautiful and that was so cool. So when I started playing this game again, I was like, holy shit, I need to text Kat and be like, hey, actually, you gotta be a bit careful when playing this game.
You know, it's funny you say that, because that's where your mind goes when you're experiencing trauma.
Yeah.
When something so devastating is happening in front of you, your mind wanders and you go to a better place. And I'm interpreting that was like Fran's better place. And that's why you remembered it the most, because that was the best part. Of course, you don't want to remember all the shitty things that happen. You remember the pretty stuff. And that's exactly, I think that is definitely what that was supposed to represent. There's without a doubt, like, like you have control of everything. Like in that world, you have control of everything. And one of my issues, especially with trauma, is that I don't have control.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was a poll in Rachel's stream, what if you like being big spoon or little spoon? I said I like being big spoon because it freaks me out being, I don't want to say cuddled, but just like restrained. Ugh, freaks me out. And I also said like I hate soft touch. I don't like gentle touch. It freaks me out too. It's like either touch me or don't touch me. So it's just kind of, it's like one of those, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. So you would also say, like, I thought it was so again, like, I don't know. I really like the wordplay of the chapter, because you are, even also if you're experiencing trauma and you're kind of going to your happy place, and if you keep doing that in a sense, but not working through your trauma, you will end up in this sort of vegetative state, because you're kind of subduing something.
You're stuck there.
Yeah, you're a bit, yeah, basically you're stuck. And I mean, she is stuck there, and she's really trying to get out of it. That's what I thought was very interesting to me. Like she doesn't want to stay there. she makes it very, very clear that she doesn't belong here right now. She needs to go home. I think even Mr. Midnight says it's so pretty here. Why don't we just stay there? And she makes it very clear that she needs to go home. And I thought that was very powerful.
Yeah, me too.
Because it makes it clear that if you have this one place and it's okay to be there for a certain period of time, but it's always good to then also come back from that and look at the real things that face your demons, so to say, especially in this instance, and work through whatever you need to be working through.
Yeah, for sure.
It's interesting how that chapter is like so out. I mean, I think it's also super memorable because it's so outstanding in this entire game.
Right.
It's just one
beautiful
place.
Too much of anything is bad, and I think it's like you said, I think it was very brave or mature of Fran to want to go back, because that means going back to like everything that hurts too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think it takes a lot to understand the appreciation and being hurt, because if you can be hurt, that means you can be loved. Like there's no one without the other.
I don't know. I'm just nodding. Yeah. Yeah.
So Fran gets turned into a tree.
Oh yeah, right. She falls from a. Oh yeah, right. The way she gets there, right, is they basically they're already on their way home. Then this big monster, which you also think may have killed her parents, shows up, and they fall from a great height. And in that fall, basically, Fran, to save herself, to save her fragile body, turns herself into a tree involuntarily. She doesn't mean to, but she does. Which also, there's a whole essay you can write about that.
That's what I mean. There are so many more in-depth things, because like literally she fell and she turned into a tree. Like that is legitimately what happened. And that's why this game is such a mindfuck, because stuff like that is just like, oh, that's normal. But if you like actually like if you actually like get it and like read into it, you would know like that's not at all what it's saying. So, like such a jackass, but like it's true. You could play it for the surface game that it is, of just like a little magic game where you could really write a fucking essay about it. It is so in depth. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, but I love games like that. Oh, Messenger, this is such a good game. I love this game so much.
I'm so glad. Next, we get kind of into this magic space ship powered by Edward, or rather powered by some fire berries, but we don't need to get into that too much. But like,
think of Fortnite Battle Bus.
It does look like that.
It is the Fortnite Battle Bus.
Edward was playing
but
Fortnite.
Dark and mysterious.
Oh no. Yeah, and you get saved by this character, which we just said looks very much like Dr. Facilia from Princess and the Frog. However, just complete skeleton. So, just skin and bones. And also a bit of a weird fella.
So he's a little quirky.
Like, is your friend... I mean, he is your friend, but he has, like, weird ways to show affection. Like, he locks you in a room so that you can solve puzzles to get out, to be surprised by a surprise birthday party.
Oh, I definitely thought after he locks you in a room, I was like, okay, this dude's evil. He was manipulating you. And then you get out and he's like, hey, I wanted to put this surprise together for you. And man, mindfuck.
I think this is because as Fran, you've been burned so many times also up to that point that this is what they want you to expect. But no, Edward is a nice-ish guy. You know?
He's in it for himself, but...
He does want to help Fran to get back, eventually. That's his motive. And he does also want to help save Fran, basically. So his motives are good in that sense, I would say. Like, as from the protagonist's point of view, he's your protector.
Oh, can I also note, the twins that you killed earlier... are now on that same bus, right? But they're now separated.
Right.
They're not so together anymore. So this makes me think, this is why I go back to like the Grim Reaper thing, is that he is, and he drives something too. So that makes me think he is like your safeguard between worlds, between your like these realities. And they also talk about like the fifth reality.
Yeah, there's lots of realities.
They keep telling about different realities, so this makes me think he's like the taxi driver of taking people somewhere, wherever
Yeah.
their afterlife may be.
Oh, we also learned that the evil spirits that feed on your fears and worries and everything are called kamalas. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And you get rid of them by water. And I thought this was so funny because, okay, not funny, but also when I'm in a really bad depressive state, the last thing I want to do is shower.
That is so true.
But I know if I do shower, it helps me so much. So that's what I had to think about when you had to splash the kamalas with water. I was like, ah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I thought, and it's cool because it gives you a weapon against these bad things, and it gives you like a visual representation of that too. So I think that's a thing. Like I feel like I can actually use that visualization for my own therapy so that I can have a thing, first of all, an image of what this dark spirit can look like, this demon, and secondly of, because I work a lot with visualizations, how I can literally throw like water balloons at that thing to get rid of it, just to I can clear my mind a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I took from that. I'm gonna have to tell my therapist that on Tuesday. Be like, I played a video game and I think I learned something. Say anything else with Edward? I mean, in the end, we learned the Kamalas have attacked the ship, and even though we try to save it, it's going down.
Yeah, the ship's crashing.
Our ship's crashing.
You crash. Somehow you and Mr. Minute are fine, but Edward and everyone else are essentially missing.
Yeah.
They're just gone now. There's also, I don't think there's any evidence of the crash.
Nope.
And you get up, and then I think you go home.
Yeah, you find your street and you go to your house.
Yeah, it's like a fever dream. Like,
easy.
You fell from the sky, you wake up, and then you go back home.
Yeah.
You and Mr. Midnight get separated again because he goes inside to unlock the door, and then Fran gets taken back to the asylum by, what's his name again?
Dr. Dearn.
Dr. Dearn.
Dr. Dearn.
And he's one of the doctors that we're iffy about. He seems like he's in the unknown about what's happening at Oswald, but he's still doing his job.
However, he does, like in that exact car, I tell you that he was deceived. Right?
Right. Okay, yeah.
He does tell you that he thinks there's more happening here and that they have to go investigate, and that he thinks he was deceived, and that he thought it was weird that the nurse from the asylum put out a notice that Fran Bow was actually dead when she in fact wasn't dead. And he was very confused about all this, and because of all that he really wanted to go investigate. And what place better to go to investigate than, if someone is dead, than the grave?
Yeah.
That was a rough one. Because you literally are supposed to dig up your body, your mom's, and your dad's body.
Well, he also explains in that car ride that the pills you have been taking have a hallucinogen in them.
True. You're right.
So, see, this is where I'm saying, like, if you learn this and then you think back to all the other chapters when you're taking those pills, because taking the pills helps you solve puzzles. It helps you, like, you need them. You rely on them to then find out they're hallucinations. So it's, what have I been experiencing that was real and not a hallucination? Or has all of it been a hallucination and I'm still in the therapy chair where Fran was laying, where you could see her body laying there? And it's just, like, I still think Fran is just laying in that therapy chair and they're doing experiments on her, and all of this was just a hallucination.
Possibly. I literally wrote down, what is reality? How do we define reality? Are the pills there to see true? Are the pills, but then also the pills are not a wonder drug, because you still have to do all these things. They don't do them for you.
Right.
You still have to work through all these things. And they're basically just a tool that you have to solve some issues. I think I would interpret it more like a tool.
Right.
And I thought I liked that a lot because it doesn't like, ooh, I take this magical pill and now I'm good, because that's not how it works. Yay, it would be cool if it did. It doesn't.
And it also, I don't think it ever, towards the end, it demonizes the pill, but Fran never really does.
That's true.
I liked that because then it makes me feel less awkward about taking medication. You know, it's like something that I work with. It's not something that's fixing me. I think a lot of people think if you're taking medication, it's to be fixed, when that's not necessarily true.
No, you still gotta fix yourself.
My parents.
My extended family. What?
Sorry, what?
Some friends that I have. Oops. Yeah, and I like that interpretation in that sense. And also, Fran doesn't become a completely different character. I also hate that when people claim that you become a different person. It's like, that's not entirely how this works. But yeah, I like that. Like the it makes you feel a bit less awkward about taking these things. And yeah, in the end, you still gotta fix yourself. Yay! Woohoo! There be. Going back to digging up the graves. Grave robbery, yay! You do that, right? And then you find out that your mom's and your dad's bodies are in there.
Yeah, you open a coffin.
I mean, they're like bodies, right? But they don't look chopped up, right?
Yeah, so you open the graves, yeah, because you see your mom's head decapitated. And when you open these graves, they look completely fine, they look completely normal. And then when you go to open up the third grave, you find a cat's body.
Yeah. So it's like insinuated that Fran's is like they pretend that Fran is dead. They being someone that we don't know yet, but we will find out in a bit. And then instead, Mr. Midnight maybe possibly has been dead this entire time, but then maybe also it's a different cat. We don't know.
Mr. Midnight is still in the house, which then made me very worried about him.
Yeah.
But then as you go to exit the cemetery, you're met with the goat devil, Remor, again. He takes the doctor. Does he, like, murder him?
I'm not sure. I don't know, because we see him again.
He, like, holds up his hand and he just makes him vanish. And then Fran comes and he touches Fran's head and her eyes roll back in her head and she passes out. And then the next thing you know, you're waking up in your childhood bedroom and Aunt Grace is there greeting you. And Fran is chained to the bed.
Yeah!
And that's kind of where we start again.
And you're like, wait, I thought my aunt was a good one. Because, okay, someone else, I think this was in Sarah's article, I think she pointed out that Grace is named very pointedly as, you know, the saving grace. But you want to go home because you honestly saving grace. And then you're home and you're chained to the bed and you're like, Aunt Grace, what the fuck? Really? Why? And then she claims that you do bad things. Your hands do bad things. That's what she claims. That's what they're shamed up.
She also blames Mr. Midnight for the murder of her sister and her brother-in-law, so Fran's parents.
Yeah, she says the cat killed them.
Yeah, so now part of the story is that apparently the cat killed the parents. Aunt Grace leaves, and then all of a sudden you're transported into, I want to say, an asylum room again, but you're with another version of Fran, which seems like it's from another reality.
Yeah.
So we had the Spider-Verse, so now we have, like, the Fran-verse.
Exactly,
you know
yeah.
what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It seems like a younger version of Fran, but from a different timeline. It's not like her from the past, it's her from the past from a different reality.
Yeah, because Mr. Midnight doesn't exist in that reality, she says. She doesn't have a cat.
No.
And then this other younger friend unlocks you from the bed, and then you're back into your own childhood, and through some searching, through some keys, through a cat doll that turns itself into a door, you then enter what I want to call is what is his name? Is a Monet painting? A fractured labyrinth-esque world where there's doors leading in all directions, like top, bottom, and it's all disjointed.
It's like Fran's house got, how would you describe that? It's like think of, you know, that SpongeBob episode where Squidward is finally like alone, you know, like that when they're going through the different universes and all the squares are everywhere. You know what I'm talking
I
about?
think so, yeah.
It felt like that. Like
It's all a bit wrong.
you're in this space, like you're in your home, but like your home is split apart into a galaxy kind of, and then there's doors leading to different things. So like you open a door and then there's stairs that look like they're going up, but they're upside down. Like
There's so many riddles in that stuff, so I literally just looked at a guide and just figured them out through there because it was just taking me too long, and I don't know. It was so weird now. I don't know anymore. I just wanted to get to the end, basically. So I don't have that much to say about that. I don't know if you have anything. I mean, it's called very pointedly, it's called the House of Madness, which is also, I think, I feel like it's a very, like, Alice in Wonderland reference. I mean, you had that. That's literally in the chapter where you see the picture of Alice. And you're like, wait, I know this.
so after solving all these, so each door is locked and you have to essentially find a key for each one. And the last door you unlocked, it looks very bloody from the outside.
Yeah.
And then when you go inside, you're met with, I think, a bunch of skulls and a giant face on the wall that is sleeping. You have to, so before you even do that, you have to like make a contraption by the inventor Cogwind, isn't that his name? The nice acorn that we met.
Yes.
So he invented this contraption that will wake them up.
Yeah, the name is Mabuka.
And they essentially say that you are, I don't want to say the chosen one, but
in a way, yeah.
You were selected, it says you were selected by the 5 realms of essential existence to be the keeper of the key.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, someone from a very long time ago predicted this will happen.
Yeah.
The keeper will be hunted by the son of darkness after feeding from the red seed. And you can interpret the red seed being her pills that she's been taking.
Mm-hmm.
And they say all of that, her eyes start bleeding, the floor breaks, and there's a ladder that you can climb down.
And then next you're in the most horrible waiting area at a doctor's office, which I assume someone from the States would understand better. I don't know. It felt like a very pointed what's it called? Critique on the insurance system in a way, or the medical system. Because you just have to wait a number, and it seemed as if the people who had gotten a number to wait had been waiting for an eternity,
Yep.
And nobody was getting any further. And so Fran did a cheeky little thing. She actually technically treated a patient, got the next number, and then it just jumped from number 1 to number 2, which was essentially Fran's number, and then she had to they had to leave again, call the nurse, and then come back, and then she was finally able to get. So this was the worst. I was so mad at that game for that.
Remember my own experience?
Oh,
and
right.
then Wyatt had to call them for me to just get to them. So yeah, I heavily related to that. Especially, you know, it's funny because I was playing on stream, and during that whole scene, I was like, you know, this reminds me of that time I checked in to meet with my psychiatrist. And I waited 2 hours, and then it turns out they never even checked me in.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I asked multiple times. I went up, and I'm like, hey, is everything okay? Oh, sorry, I guess something happened in our system, you didn't get checked in.
It's literally that.
Thanks.
Basically. When you finally make it through there, you're greeted by none other than Remor, again, who shows you a vision of you killing your own parents. And heavily emboweling them and chopping them into pieces, basically.
Your mom's head is severed, her limbs are missing, her torso is in half, your dad's leg is missing, his hand is off. So from what Remora is showing you is completely different from the bodies you dug up
Yes.
already, which I think is interesting to note.
I'll ask you about. Well, actually, I can ask you, Ryan. Do you think Fran killed her parents?
I don't. I don't think she did.
I also don't think so. I have a different theory, but we're gonna come to that in a second, I think.
Okay, maybe I kind of think she killed them. I'm like back and forth because
Oh.
do you want to hear my theory real fast? This is what I was gonna come back to.
Yeah, please.
So, after you were shown that, you find Mr. Midnight again, and he's just a cat. He doesn't talk to you like he used to.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also see a picture on the wall that shows two twins, and then two even smaller twins. So this kind of introduces you to the experimenting on twins. But then you also realize that if you look closely, you'll notice the names. And two of the twins that were apparently experimented on were Grace and Lucia, meaning your aunt and your mom were twins in this experiment. So this is my theory. After I learned that, a lot of things kind of clicked in my head. I think Aunt Grace, because they put an emphasis that you hung out with her before your parents, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my theory with how dedicated Aunt Grace seems with working with, what's the man in the wheelchair? Oswald. Yes, sorry. She's so dedicated with Oswald. A part of me thinks she drugged Fran with like her drink, and then Fran started hallucinating because you see Remora in the window, I think.
Yeah.
I think Fran started hallucinating, and that's why she killed her parents. That's my theory.
Okay.
And that it was Aunt Grace. But see, I'm not even too sure about that either, because
So my theory is that actually, because we come back and because we Aunt Grace has changed the bed a couple, like the last chapter, right? Actually, it was in this chapter still the House of Madness chapter. I thought that maybe because Fran suffers from trauma-induced amnesia, she had been abused by her aunt in any shape or form before. I think this has been a thing that has happened for a while. And I feel as if the parents came home and the mom then realized what was happening and got very upset, because I feel like because Grace is so obsessed with the whole thing, because Dr. Oswald had been experimenting on them, like her and her sister when they were little. I don't know up to which point, and apparently she is also now very obsessed with all that and helping him, like experiment in some way. And so I thought that she then kept on experimenting on Fran in her
Interesting.
quote unquote free time whenever the parents were out. Basically, I don't know what she was doing, but then they came back, and I feel like the mom realized what was happening. Grace thought that this was putting the whole thing that she has planned with Dr. Oswald in danger, so she killed the parents. And I mean, she still would drug Fran and make her hallucinate because she didn't want anyone to know. And this is also why she kind of like worked together with the nurse, and then also, technically Dr. Oswald and the nurse in the background, putting out this false narrative of Fran being dead so she could be experimented on further in the clinic under Dr. Oswald's supervision and the nurse's supervision, with Dr. Dearn basically just being a bit of a plaything. So that's my theory of the whole thing.
I like your theory a lot more than mine. I'm going with that one. I'm changing my answer. We're going with that one.
I don't. Maybe also I'm just like, I don't want Fran to be the killer, but I don't think.
True.
I don't think she, because of all the evidence we get of the bodies being intact. So that image that was shown by Rummer doesn't line up with how that looked, right?
Well, that also goes back to what I was saying with the victim of sexual assault, how they blame themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe internally Fran's blaming herself, so she's seeing
Yes!
her killer parents, even though that's not at all what happened.
And that would make sense too, because
Mm-hmm.
it maybe in a way she believes she is guilty. Maybe she actually does know that she's the reason why Grace killed them. So that in her mind, that still would, yeah, like you said, that still makes sense to her that she's the evil person here, in that very childlike good and evil. But yeah, that's my interpretation, because like I think so in the very end, right, after we see Rimmer, we see the cat who's still just meowing now in a golden cage, and then we have Dr. Deern chained to this electric chair, which there's an achievement you get when you electrocute him 3 times.
There is? I didn't know you could do that. That's
Yeah,
hilarious.
there is. And Fran says something like, "Ooh, that tickles," or something like that. It's really awful. And then you inject a red syringe into him, being like, maybe this will wake him up.
So
and you're like,
I interpret that being the same red pills that Fran's taking. So now he understands what
too.
she's seeing now.
Yeah. In a way, I did too, but he doesn't wake up initially.
Mm-mm.
Instead, you have Aunt Grace wheeling in Dr. Oswald, backseating Dr. Oswald, saying that he wants to do experiments on Fran, and that the mother was always in the way, like Lucia was always in the way. She didn't want that to happen, but apparently Fran is this perfect child. I don't know what they all see in her, but there's something there, and then she promises on Grace that she will do anything, and then on Grace and her go to the next frame, so to say, and she just on Grace chucks the cat off the cliff.
She full on drops. The cat's like in this golden bird cage, just full on drops it off the ledge.
Yeah.
The ledge of the universe. It looks like the universe, almost like.
Yeah. Something Rachel talks about in her article, that abusers often like get rid of like child's pets and toys and stuff because they wanna. It's just like something about showing power necessarily, and of course the pet would give the child some love, and then abusers don't
want
that. So that's definitely a thing that she says that would be in line with that theory.
And in response to that, Fran starts choking out her aunt. And I rooted for her, possibly.
Mm-hmm.
And then in response to you choking out your aunt, you get shot in the back.
Yeah.
And presumably lay there and bleed. And Itward shows up for a second.
He does!
Itward shows
and
back up.
And he does something really cool.
Itward shows up and he essentially yeets Oswald. You don't really see where he yeets him to, but he yeets him out of the frame, and then he yeets Aunt Grace off the same ledge that she threw Mr. Midnight off of.
Yes!
However, there's more!
But it's so cool. I think for me, they're floating in between the realities in the abyss eternally.
So Palatras, the Appa-looking axolotl, saved Mr. Midnight from the abyss, brought him back, and he comes and he heals you from your wounds. And it's very beautiful. Especially the still image that they show.
I mean, I think that's also a thing. Like it's a good doctor. Dr. Deern is there too, and he's witnessing this all. But then I think his eyes roll back and there's all bloody. And it's like, because he couldn't handle this. But then Palontras basically says, we're just going to magic him back to where he came from. And he will not remember this. He will think this is all a dream. And he will not remember you, but he won't be harmed. And Fran is like, yeah, please make sure he's good. And I was like, aw. She's such a sweet child, actually.
She's so sweet.
Because I think, is it either Palontras or Edward who makes the remark that is a very mature reaction of her, because she is not selfish in that she just wants him to be okay even if she doesn't remember her, but that like she first says bring him with us, and then they say we can't do that, we just have to take him back. She's like, oh yeah, but make sure he's unharmed, and they say that's a very like unselfish reaction of you. That's
Right.
a very mature way of handling these things, like basically showing that Fran has grown in her journey, so to say.
Yeah, so it ends with Fran and Mr. Midnight getting on top of and flying away.
Do you have the final quote written down?
What is it?
For me, this is the like this is so fucking powerful. In the end, Fran says, I still don't know many things, but one thing I do know, that between guilt and fear, I choose happiness.
Oh.
It's so powerful.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a quote. You know, I wouldn't get many things tattooed on me as quotes, but that would be something I would get tattooed on me. Between guilt and fear, I choose happiness. What a beautiful thing to say. Just
In awe.
incredible. And she does get saved. And her abuses are no longer there. They're banished. And she gets her like happy ending in a way.
I don't remember who says this to her, but I've written down pain is connected to growth and strength, Fran, which really stood out to me too.
I don't know who said that, but that's a good one.
And then this one I also thought was powerful. I think Itward says this to her when she's on the ship for the first time. Once you can't feel love, you die, even if your body still walks.
Yeah. You should see it in a second. So yeah, this is why
we're processing our emotions.
Yeah. I think this is just talking about to you about this game again. I remember why I wanted to talk about it, and I also remember why it impacted me so much the first time I played it, and why it still impacted me a lot, even though it was in very different ways the second time I played it. Because I think the first time I was more so focused on like more the happy things and all that good stuff, because that's so literally what I remembered. And I think the second time I was more focused on like the different, just all the different aspect that she goes through, and how her basically how her pills are her tool to go through this in a way. And then also um how powerful I found it that she chooses not to stay in that happy. I think that was one of the biggest things that I took away this time. How powerful I found it that she chooses not to stay in that happy place, quote unquote, but actually chooses to work through and face what is causing her fear and grief and trauma head on. How she's like working through this, because like that's literally what I'm gonna
Yeah.
that's literally where I'm at right now in my life. So I'm glad to have been able to play this again. And to be fair, I was very hesitant when I first played it, and I saw lots of like because it's very gory at the start.
It is pretty gory, yeah.
Very gory, and I was a bit worried that I had misremembered that I liked it. I was like, no, wait. Actually, I think
this takes a second.
I still like it. It's just, yeah, I don't know. Yeah. What do you think?
Well, I absolutely adored it. I loved it. I think no matter who you are, you can take something away from it because it can be interpreted in so many different ways. And I think that's why I love it so much, is that it's so loose, but it makes sense, you know? Like, it just works. I don't know.
Yep. And it's just, it is there at whatever part of your journey you're in at that point. Like I think you said earlier, you can play it and take away the deepest, darkest things or the deepest meaningful things, or you can just play it and enjoy it for what it is. Yeah, and it still is meaningful in that sense. And it's I think Kill Monday did a very good job by making sure that there is not a clear cut interpretation because that would stunt it in a way, I feel.
Oh, of course, yeah. I agree.
Yeah, it's very much so that you have to put your own interpretation into it. And I get that not everyone wants to do that, and I think that's fair as well. So, but this is very much built on how you see this for yourself and how your I don't know, I want to say experiences you had in the world. Do you want to go through the ratings?
Sure, yeah.
All right. So, how are the characters with mental health disorders portrayed here?
Let's say extremely well.
Yeah. I mean, you have Fran is not portrayed by her mental, like, she is not her mental illness. It's just
No.
part of her. And the same goes for all the other kids, especially at the asylum. You all get to know them through
Context
like
clues.
different things.
They never
Yeah.
outright tell you anything. It's all just written on walls, literally, or
Mm-hmm.
just listening to their demon talk. Yeah, their shadow person.
And it's very much makes it clear that this is a part of someone, but it's not defining the person.
It's so eerie, but you want to keep learning more. It's like, that's how I felt. Like, I felt so creeped out and I was intruding someone's privacy, but I kept wanting to learn more.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Are the characters who suffer from mental health disorders the villains?
No, not at all. If anything, they're being taken advantage of completely.
I would say yes and no, because I definitely think there's something there with Grace. And I feel like Grace has fallen into the abused abuser cycle.
See, that's what I was gonna say, is that I don't count Grace in that,
Yeah, okay,
because
okay.
she was in the same boat, and I think she's just brainwashed by Oswald to make those decisions.
Yeah, I was.
But if we're talking about just Oswald and like the people that work there that you come across, and I think even when you come across some adults and you take the red pill, they turn into skeletons or something just absolutely awful. Like, even in the other universe you go into, they are portrayed as shit. Just bad.
Rotting,
Yeah,
basically. Rotten to the core.
Yeah, you're totally right.
It's a bit of like what is a villain, right? So I would say in the game sense, Grace is portrayed as the villain, and she does suffer from some mental health disorders. She definitely has some mental illnesses, but like as you said, I was gonna come to that exact same point actually, of like she's a victim herself in the abuse that she probably got. Very real abuse, definitely, from Dr. Oswald that she suffered. And it's more so that the people in the story that have different, or that live with different mental illnesses and mental health disorders, are the protagonists, the heroes of the story, and they are not defined through it, like I just said. So I feel like also the stereotyping doesn't apply that much. However, I am going to criticize the asylum again, because I still think we should move, as like a society, we should move away from the horror setting of the asylum, because it does keep perpetuating the stereotype of that you're not getting help there, which is not true in that sense, or it shouldn't be true in that sense. And it kind of perpetuates the stereotype that everyone who goes to a mental asylum is either experimented on or in their own right deeply flawed. I don't know. I was still gonna criticize it.
If you Google like 1940s insane asylum, it holds up, because their practices back then were not even humane either.
That is true.
Do you remember like lobotomies? Like, to think if we were back
absolutely.
then. Like, I was thinking about that. Like, oh my god.
For the time, absolutely not. I'm not criticizing that. I think for the time it does absolutely make sense.
Yeah.
I'm just, as on its own right, I'm gonna criticize the asylum. It's a bit of a cheap horror thing, which I see how Fran Bow flips it on its head.
Yeah.
As being like, hey, the patients are all cool here, and it's literally just another place here, and the kids get stuff to draw,
but in
and
the
so
grand
on. But
scheme of things,
it's still the horror setting, and this I'm still gonna kill Monday games. I mean, I know the next game that they put out, and they purposefully didn't use that again. I'm really thankful for them. So, but yeah. The next one is a bit tough because the next one is, of course, our plot device or important on its own question, and the whole entire game is about you taking pills and seeing different realities. I don't know if this applies.
It doesn't because it's important for a plot.
And on its own.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say the answer is yes.
Yeah, but like, yeah, it's yeah, which is it's an either or question, but the answer is yes. But that's just how it is. It's not as if, I would say there's a very much a difference between a very triggering image that we were shown in Never-Ending Nightmares, which would literally just a device to shock you,
Like a jump scare almost.
yeah. Whereas in this, it's definitely very much like everyone is very important on their own, in their own right. And it's a very coherent story, so to say.
There's also nothing gory is shoved down your throat that you have to look away from. Usually it's something that you click on that will turn into a different type of artwork that I've shown you. Like,
yeah. However, I will say that I think the very first time when you take these pills and there's like blood and lots of gore.
That's true. I always keep forgetting about like the very first time you take them because that was a little bit of a shock.
Yeah, it is definitely a bit of a shock, and I don't know how else they could have worked that in there that it wouldn't be that much of a shock. And I don't know if you start the game, if it gives you. I don't think the game gives you a trigger warning when you start it. I would say if the game would be made now, I would say if you start it up now, I think it would give you a bit of a trigger warning so you would kind of know that there's gore to be expected.
The first part is very intense, but if you can hold out until chapter 2, it gets better. Or it just kind of like dies down a little bit.
For sure. Overall recommendation, Cat, out of 10 Mr. Midnights. How many Mr. Midnights do you give?
12.
Oh.
13.
Sheesh.
Cats have 13 lives.
Kill Monday, sponsor us.
Do cats have, how many lives do cats have? 10? What is the number?
That's a good question. Because the thing is, it's different in English versus in German. That's what I know. I think in German they only have 7.
Oh, they have 9 lives. 9 lives.
See, in English they have 9 lives. In German, the saying goes they have 7 lives, by the way. So how many Mr. Midnights?
10 out of 10. 10 out of 10 Mr. Midnights.
9 lives plus 1.
9 lives plus 1, yes.
Okay, perfect.
And out of how many sewn together twins?
Oh, do I say the 5 then? Or 10?
Either way, it's gonna be doubled. No matter what, it's gonna be doubled. Give me 10, it's gonna be 20.
Then I'm gonna say, so, I'm gonna give it 9 sets of twins. So 4.5 twins.
Hell yeah, let's go.
I think I'm gonna subtract a point just purely because I will still die on the hill of the asylum is overworked. We don't need it anymore. Please use something else. I do get that this game is a bit older, but still. I would just want to hammer this in because there might be a game developer listening. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Future game developers, we don't need another Outlast, okay?
Please.
It's over. It's overplayed. Yeah. Think of something else. There's so many more scary things in there in the world. We don't need to perpetuate mental illness as a horror setting. Thank you.
I'm looking through rose-colored glasses. I agree, but I'm just remembering my good parts right now. I'm still on the Fran Bow high.
It's because you were on your first playthrough, and I was exactly the same.
Yeah.
So I can be a little bit more critical in that sense.
That was an awesome game. Thank you for recommending it again.
Thank you for playing it. I really appreciate it.
I loved it.
I'm glad that I could play it again because the first time I didn't get to talk about it, so I finally able to get to talk about it, and it made me very happy, and it made me realize so many things. Like I just said, I'm gonna talk to my therapist about it.
There you go. That's good.
Still only get 9 out of 10 points. Okay, well, Kat, what do you have planned for me for next time? Do you have a game planned?
I do actually. So keeping up with the puzzles and just feminine, like pure feminine protagonist. I kind of want to give you Portal 2. Have you ever played it?
I have not.
I would like you to play Portal 2 because it's not just the puzzles are pretty tricky, I will admit.
Uh-huh.
But if you just listen and maybe explore the little things, you will find a much bigger story at hand.
That sounds very interesting. That sounds like something that I would enjoy a lot. Do I need to play Portal 1 to play Portal 2?
You do not need to play Portal 1 to play Portal 2.
Good to know.
From my knowledge, Portal 1 was just kind of I mean, it's nice to have some background because it starts right where you left off. But I wouldn't say it's necessarily important.
All right.
Not too much. It already gives you the recap in Portal 2 if you just kind of like put it together.
All right. I'm excited.
I'm excited.
I'm excited.
Ooh.
Ooh, thank you so much for the recommendation. Kat, thank you so much for podcasting with me.
Well, thank you so much for podcasting with me. I always enjoy getting to talk to you.
Me too. I'm glad we got to do it again now. Yeah, thank you everyone for listening. Thank you for recommending us to your estranged Aunt Grace. Thank you. I'm sure she will enjoy this episode very much. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. We appreciate you. Thank you for following us on the socials. We have a Twitter account at Modding Mental, and we have a YouTube.
Brand new YouTube account.
Modding Mental Health.
Let's go.
Meow, meow, meow. And we have a Gmail address if you want to send us cool things. It's moddingmentalhealth@gmail.com. You can also send us topics that you want to discuss, or you can talk to us about how we got that one rating wrong from that one game. We're happy to discuss our ratings
Sure,
again.
I'll fight you.
Absolutely. Just Kat, see? All right. Well, thank you so much, Kat.
And guys, make sure to check out Little Messenger over at twitch.tv/Little Messenger.
Without the V now.
Without the V.
I dropped the definite article. It's gone. It's just Little Messenger now.
She's just Little Messenger now, not the Little Messenger.
No, you should know by this point I am the Little Messenger. And, you should also go check out twitch.tv/IamCatastrophic with a K, not a C.
Nope. My name starts with a K. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, it's all linked in the links in the descriptions.
You'll find it somewhere.
You will find. I'm sure you'll find it. Okay.
I love you.
Thank you guys so much for listening.
And I love you guys.
Bye.
Okay, bye. Bye.